Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're having a beautiful, wonderful morning. Yes, today we're going to be discussing what we did witness last night in regards to the PSG Arsenal game, and then of course we'll have to preview a bit Barcelona versus Inter Milan. But as the case always is, we need to check out our audios and make sure everything is in place to get ourselves started as you guys get to join the podcast. So kindly bear with me as we do our routine and get this thing all in place so that you do not miss out on any minute whatsoever due to any audio technicalities. So as we wait for other members to join the broadcasts, yeah, because we do think it's going to be a beautiful day. Quite interesting, quite interesting. Yes, so many talking points. Arsenal missing Thomas Partey, Martin Odegaard not having a good day in office. He's gotten a bit of stick from Arsenal fans in regards to what transpired yesterday. So there is that, and among other things, Vitinha quite being very performative, putting on a man of the match performance on the day, and then we had a good performance from Gianluigi Donnarumma. David Raya coming to the rescue of Arsenal on that back on that Desiree attempt and things in that line. So it was a beautiful game. But good morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Thank you to all our new subscribers. We reached about 1,100 something subscribers, and that's a huge milestone for us. And I hope we do continue to grow together on this journey to grow this community. But you're much appreciated. Those of you that join us for our live broadcasts, especially deep in the night, and those that tune in from far. The other time we had a gentleman tuning in from California. We've had a couple of colleagues join us from India. We also had somebody from Germany recently, and yeah, it's been quite interesting to move on this journey. So if you're new to the broadcast, kindly leave me a like, leave me a comment, tell me how you are, tell me where you're tuning in from, ask any questions you'd want to ask as in respect to that game that we did witness yesterday between Arsenal and PSG, or in respect to Barcelona versus Inter Milan that does come up tonight. So many talking points, but like I was saying, I'm really grateful for all those that join us from far and between. You're really much appreciated. We're a growing community, so kindly leave me a like on the broadcast, give me your comments, and as we get this conversation ongoing. So, like I said, so many talking points, but where do we get it all started? I think we'll pick on the comments of Mikel Arteta, who said that they got something wrong in the first 10-15 minutes of the game. And while he did not state specifically or categorically what that was, yes, hello, bro. How are you? How are you doing? Where are you tuning in from? I can see, unfortunately, I cannot read your name or your handle. It appears to be in Hindu. Is it Hindu or Indian, whatever? I stand to be corrected on that, but welcome to the broadcast. Kindly leave me a like and kindly consider subscribing if you're new here. You say, nice football player. Yes, fine. How are you? I'm good. Thank you for tuning in. So let me know, what country are you streaming in from? Are you guys football fans? Do you enjoy football? Do let me know kindly. So yes, he says, bro, watching in from Pakistan. Yes, Pakistan, a beautiful country. I do remember having a friend from there back, I think back around 2010, a friend from Pakistan. She was a lady who used to chat out of Facebook. So thank you so much, people from Pakistan. So much having you here. really love this. Anyways, let's get it all started. Let's get into the thick of the action. Like I was saying in part of the preamble, that Mikel Arteta said that they got something tactically wrong in the first 10-15 minutes of the game. Although he did state specifically that what that was, but he said it disrupted their game. Disrupted. Yes, Mr. Okuyo Amlen, thank you. Oli muzira, oli munjozi. Yeah, I'm putting on the Arsenal jersey. Yesterday I was putting on a PSG jersey. I hope I didn't rattle any feathers in that kit. But anyways, Mr. Okuyo is one of our usual suspects on the channel. He's one of our new members on the community, very supportive. Much appreciated, Mr. Okuyo. Thank you so much. So, Mikel Arteta said that something happened in the first 10-15 minutes that kind of disrupted their plan. And although he didn't come out to say specifically what that was, he went on to say that it sort of impacted how they played or how they went about the game, and it caused them problems. And if, for those of you that do remember, I think it had something to do with how they pressed PSG, and because the goal they conceded came in as early as the 4th minute, that goal scored by Ousmane Dembele, quite a brilliant goal. Kivicha Kvaratskhelia providing the assist. I did get the feeling that Kivicha Kvaratskhelia wasn't really pressed down by Julian Timber, and he was given a lot of space, and that's why he had all the gap to play in, Ousmane Dembele near at the edge of the 18 yards box. But also Ousmane Dembele was found lacking in that space, unmarked. I will beg the question, who was supposed to track him? Where were the two centre backs? Could have Jakub Kiwior moved up a bit to close that gap, or was it supposed to be Declan Rice, who must have run back to try and close that space? So Ronaldo is a legend, bro. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Although I would want to understand, are you saying Cristiano Ronaldo, or are you saying or are you saying Ronaldo Nazario da Lima, the Brazilian? But so that moment was pivotal in the game, because that sole goal turned out to be the match winner on the day for PSG, giving them the 1-0 advantage prior to the second leg that will be at Parc de France next week on Wednesday. But when it came to overall play, I thought PSG were on the better side. They dominated the game, and it is something that we had said in the preview of this particular fixture, that PSG technically were the better team as compared to Arsenal. Although we gave Arsenal the edge, we said Arsenal were better physically, but technically PSG were better. And I think it was João Neves who said something similar, that yes, we know Arsenal are better than us physically, but technically on the ball, I think we will be better. And indeed we were better. I thought Luis Enrique outsmarted and outwitted or outclassed Mikel Arteta, which partly spoke to his experience as a manager, having guided Barcelona to this particular triumph of the UEFA Champions League back in 2015 when they beat up against Juventus by 3-1 in the finals. Alvaro Morata scoring for Juventus, while Neymar Santos Jr., Luis Alberto Suarez, and Ivan Rakitic, they are scoring for Barcelona in that game. So I thought he got his tactics right, and that was Luis Enrique. They dominated the midfield early on. That early goal sort of frustrated the Arsenal crowd into silence, and it sort of felt like the crowd could not rise or bounce back from that occasion to inspire their team enough, a team that was struggling in the first 20 minutes because they weren't getting the ball. PSG were dominating possession and everything. They looked to be running in spaces and chasing shadows. Overall, it felt that way. I can see Mr. Okuyo says, and what is Brazilian about Martinelli? Besides that, I accepted your captain to step up in a game like this. Bruno Fernandes wamusingira. So, okay, we'll get to discuss, Martin Odegaard and maybe Gabriel Martinelli, because he lacks the composure to score or to at least put an attempt on target in the dying minutes of the game. But overall, in the game, I thought PSG were dominant in that midfield. It really exhibited. The game showed us, if anything, that Arsenal missed Thomas Partey in that midfield. Yes, 977 high from Germany. Yes, nice joining us. I think for the second or third time on our live broadcasts. Much appreciated for the love from Germany. I would be interested in knowing what city of Germany you're from. But thank you for joining us. Kindly consider liking the broadcast. So it really showed that Arsenal missed Thomas Partey in that midfield. They didn't have control over the midfield. Really, they lacked that, footing. They struggled to string at least 5 passes in those early stages of the game. PSG were all over them. They really pinned them down. PSG's front three kept them on the front foot. I thought in the first, again, 20, 15 minutes of the game, Urian Timber struggled a bit with contending with Kivica Kvaratskhelia, and then you had a moment where Arsenal get a corner kick and they go for that corner and then somehow left themselves vulnerable. And in trying to run back and tracking back, it took Leandro Trossard to commit a foul on Kivica Kvaratskhelia to foil that, attack, which got him in the bookings, and he got himself a yellow card. So that was the nature of the game. And then after like 22 minutes of the game, 23 there, Arsenal started to get a bit of confidence. They started to threaten. They started to create moments in the game. You had in that phase leading to the end of the first half, Arsenal get on top of things. Of course, there was a frustrating moment where Bukayo Saka, I think, wins the ball off. I think Nuno Mendes, and the linesman waves for a foul, which wasn't really a foul, really. For all the reviews for that particular incident that we've been able to see, it wasn't really a foul. It was never a foul. He won that ball really cleanly, and maybe he would have gone on to score, but to his frustration, Bukayo Saka, his emotions got the better of him and kicked that ball away, which got him a yellow card. But then you also had a beautiful run from Miles Lewis Kelly, turning Achraf Hakimi in midfield, turning him over and driving that ball through that midfield, and then having the composure to play a nice through ball for Gabriel Martinelli, whose attempt forced Gianluigi Donnarumma into a brilliant save as the first half wore on. In that particular moment, particularly, maybe I was biased from the years of watching Thierry Henry finding himself in those situations and bending that ball beyond the goalkeeper's reach, even when you knew that he was going to do it anyway. So I thought Martinelli maybe lacked the technique, maybe lacked the full composure to pull off something similar to what Henry used to do to goalkeepers. And that ball, while it forced Donnarumma into save, I felt that given the size of the goalkeeper, his height and his body, massive goalkeeper, that ball was a little too close to his body that he was able to save it at the end of the day, and that kind of thing. So as the first half wore on, Arsenal were dominating their affairs. They were on top of their game, but like I said, most Arsenal players did struggle. Martin Odegaard could hardly get on the ball. I mean, even the times he got on the ball, again, oftentimes I felt that he was either sluggish or he took too long making that usual spin of a turn that he usually makes. And overall, he did rise to the occasion. And I said prior to the start of the game that if Arsenal were to get anything out of that particular game, if all their players needed to be at their very best, but still Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka needed to stand out even more, and alongside William Saliba, among those that really needed to rise to the occasion, as well as Declan Rice. And I thought some were good, but they just did not rise above the average performance that you would expect, that they would have needed to go on to win that game. So that's what it felt. In the second half, when PSG returned, for them it was about the management and then choose your moments on when to attack Arsenal, when to go at them and try and find the second goal. So I thought they controlled the game, the tempo of the game. They frustrated Arsenal. They did what they needed to do. They forced David Raya into a brilliant save. I think that was but that was in the first half. I think that was a desired doing, forcing David Raya into a save. Again, a lapse of concentration in defense, because By the time Usman Dembele plays him that pass, you felt that the Arsenal could have done much more to close those spaces, but they hadn't. And then the follow up by Fabian Ruiz hit the upright, and but then somebody was in an offside position and that kind of thing. So in the second half, it was about game management for PSG, and which they did pretty well. Arsenal got themselves back in the game, trying to capitalize on the first half momentum that they had built. Very early into the second half, they thought they had gotten an equalizer through Mikel Merino's header of a Declan Rice set piece or free kick, and unfortunately for them, that goal was cancelled due to an offside in the build-up. And again, I must say I saw it a bit coming, because for all the set pieces Arsenal had, especially when it came to free kicks, I thought when their players made that run from behind to run into the center of the box, where the thick of action oftentimes is, you felt that yes, you were quite intentional on not being swayed by that run to push their bodies further inwards. They sort of kept their lines, and that's the same trick they played on Arsenal, and it ended up with Mikel Merino being slightly offside, and that goal was eventually cancelled, so it did not count. And so much to the frustration of Arsenal, by the way, because that goal, once it went in, it had sent that Emirates Stadium into electric mode, which I think PSG overall could have struggled to deal with. But once that goal was cancelled, again, you felt the mood of the Arsenal fans go down back again. You had those traveling PSG fans even louder than the Emirates crowd, because they thought their team was on top of things. I thought Jakub Kivio struggled in the game. He did not have a good command of his defensive duties. He looked vulnerable. He did not commit any mistakes about that ball clearance that he tried, and the ball was intercepted or deflected into the path of Bradley Bacola. That was, I think, in the 82nd minute, and he went on. Unfortunately for him, he didn't score. So, and then the other player that struggled was Martin Odegaard. We've spoken about him. He did not bring on a captain's performance. But I mean, ever since he returned from that 2 months long injury earlier on in the season, he's not been the Martin Odegaard that we had seen for the 2 previous seasons. So I do not think, while the criticism geared towards him is justified, I feel that maybe Arsenal fans ought to be a bit lenient or a bit more understanding. But it wasn't the captain's performance on the day, and it's been quite long since we've seen him really dictate the tempo of games. Maybe we've seen flashes of it, of him at his best. Maybe in that game against PSV, away to PSV, in which Arsenal won 7-1, because he scored, I think, 2 goals and assisted. And then you had that game against Ipswich Town that they won by 4-0. Again, you saw his brilliance, but those kinds of moments or performances are falling far between, because ever since he returned from that injury, so it did not really work out for him. The player that I thought was really tried to do it all, be at the top of his game, was Declan Rice. He really tried his best, and you felt that the lack of coordination in midfield between him, Mikel Merino, and Martin Odegaard, or Martin Odegaard especially, being or underperforming, affected the performance of the team, because Declan Rice really tried. Mikel Merino did his best. Remember, he's not played too often in that midfield in recent times, so you do not have that chemistry amongst that component of the 3 midfielders of Declan Rice, Mikel Merino, and Martin Odegaard. You did not have that chemistry. But I thought, in terms of being workaholics, Declan Rice and Mikel Merino did their best. In the 55th minute, you had Declan Rice do that burst of a run from deep in the midfield and going on to the attack, and played in Leandro Trossard, who forced Gianluigi Donnarumma into brilliant save, by the way. So those moments that was the only moment he did that. And the reason as to why that was the case is because he was playing as Arsenal's deep line midfielder. So he did not have so many chances to do that drive as he did against Real Madrid. So that's why I keep saying that Arsenal missed Thomas Partey really that much. They will have him for the second leg. should he not get injured in the weekend when they do first Bournemouth in the Premier League, because I think that game is equally important for them in regards to what it means where they finish in the top four, because there are chances that if Arsenal do not win some of their games, remaining 4 games, they could finish maybe fourth or fifth, possibly. Mathematically, anything is still possible when it comes to that league table, beyond the Liverpool that are already champions. So they have a Bournemouth to worry about. Remember, Bournemouth were forced into a 1-all draw over the weekend against Manchester United. They had their goal scored by Antoine Semenyo, and then Rasmus Hojlund's late equalizer cancelled out their supposed victory that had been immediate. So I think Thomas Partey will be crucial for the second leg. They will do. I think it will help them if they have him fit. And then if you have that midfield composition of Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard, maybe their fortunes will be different. So there was that. Then you also felt that the other thing that I observed, you felt that Mikel Arteta lacked ideas, or he looked devoid of ideas, especially when he turned to his bench to see who do I call on to change our fortunes in the game. Again, there were not so many options. And I said this again after reading out the starting lineups and the members of the bench. When it came to the PSG side, I could see Bradley Barcola, I could see Goncalo Ramos, I could see Zai Emery, like among the players on the PSG bench that could be called upon maybe to better the game, to or even try and improve the game or change their dynamics in that game. But on the Arsenal side, I mean, you really struggled, because let's be honest, Ethan Nwaneri has not been at the best of form in recent times. Raheem Sterling, not even anywhere being mentioned as any of the players that could be someone to change a game. So eventually, Mikel Arteta was reduced to making very late substitutions, swapping Jurriën Timber for Ben White, because I mean, Jurriën Timber had really done a commendable job keeping Ivica Kvaratskhelia quiet, especially in the second half, and maybe the last 25 minutes of the first half. So, and then later on in added time, he brought on Ethan Nwaneri again for Martin Odegaard, and there was just too little a time for the youngster to make an impact, although he did create an opportunity for Gabriel Martinelli, but Gabriel Martinelli lacked the composure to convert that chance, and then he, sort of blasted that ball way wide of the mark. And that's what Mr. Okuyi was basically commenting on. And this is what he says. And what is Brazilian about Gabriel Martinelli? Besides that, I accept your captain to step up. Now, again, Gabriel Martinelli. So I think he had the best chance in the first half. That was set by Gianluigi Donnarumma. And then almost the last kick of the game, he had that chance fall to him. And then he lacked the composure. I thought he was leaning backwards a little too much for him to be able to, get that ball on target. But yeah, I mean, okay, his Brazilianness is not in question. But then also, overall, I thought, again, in the first 20 minutes when PSG were dominating affairs, that the Arsenal wingers in Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka were not doing enough in that moment to retrieve back and help their defensive partners in Jurriën Timber and Lewis Kelly. So that kind of thing. And then maybe the other key talking point was that 82nd minute chance for Bradley Barcola, and then 2 minutes later you had an attempt by Goncalo Ramos that hit the crossbar. I mean, again, you could post, you could sort of point to Arsenal's lapse in concentration. Maybe they had given up the game at that point, but also, I think for them it was important. I think at that stage in the game, it was important that they did not concede any goals. At least keep the scoreline at 1-0, and maybe give yourself a chance going into the second leg, because it's not impossible. They are well aware that PSG lost to Liverpool in the first leg of the round of 16, and then that was by 0-0, and then went to Anfield, won by 0-0. That's in normal time, and then won the tie on penalties 4-1. So they will have that mentality. Then you also had a very brilliant tackle by by William Saliba on Akraf Hakimi, who had made the run in and looked like he was going to score. Or because when you look at David Ryan goal, I do not think he would have saved that. Should Akraf Hakimi have gone on to take the shot, because Akraf Hakimi, if there's any right back with the composure to turn off a goalkeeper in a one keeper to beat, then you do trust that he's one of those that are really capable of doing this. But William Saliba just made the tackle right in time to nick that ball off his feet. Then Vitinha, PSG's Vitinha gave us a man of the match performance. A man of the match performance with and indeed he was awarded the man of the match. He controlled that midfield. He really defended solidly. Then he had, of course, the assistance of Fabian Ruiz and João Neves. João Neves, who I thought on I think more than 2 occasions or 3, nicking that ball off Arsenal players' feet, maybe as they plan to even take a shot. So they were really impressive in that midfield, and they really won PSG the game. Then maybe the other talking point was what? Because I mean, there are so many talking points. Yes, in the 15th minute, we had a potential penalty call between Jurriën Timber and Ivica Kvaratskhelia, because Ivica Kvaratskhelia drives into the box. Then Jurriën Timber wraps his arm around his waist, and Ivica goes to the floor, and he was appealing for a penalty. Now the referee worked that incident off, and maybe people speculated that maybe he would be sent to the monitor to review his incident. But I thought the referee was spot on. Jurriën Timber wrapped his arm around the player, but I thought it was quite instinctively right of him to pull away very quickly, because it was in a flash of the moment that he wraps his hand around him and pulls it away, just enough to sort of tempt him into maybe falling over or to sort of kill his momentum. And the referee worked that off. I thought it was a good decision. Now, if he had given the penalty, although the incident in itself was quite subjective, I do not think VAR would have overturned it. I do not think VAR would have overturned it. But even when he didn't give it, the VAR trusted his judgment because the referee was there close in the thick of the moment. So I thought that was a good decision. So, and it wasn't a penalty. Pretty much like one of the incidents with Mikel Merino when he tried to take that shot in the PSG box, and his foot, unfortunately, I think smacked the turf as opposed to being fouled. And the referee again got that decision spot on, even when we watched reviews. So you could say that the only decision that the referee got wrong was that incident with Bukayo Saka when he wins that ball. But still, the center referee is not entirely to blame for that, because it's the linesman that waved for a foul when I think, and that's one of the incidents in which most Arsenal fans felt aggrieved about yesterday's game. But the victory means that PSG have beaten 4 different Premier League teams this season across the campaign of the UEFA Champions League so far. They beat up against Man City by 4 goals to 2 during the group stage level. They went on to beat Liverpool by 1-0. That was at the semi-finals. Sorry, at the round of 16, by 1-0 at Anfield, and then went on to knock them out 4-1 on penalties. Then you also had PSG beat up against Aston Villa by 3-1, and then that was at Parc des Princes, and now they beat up against Arsenal by 1-0 at the Emirates Stadium. So those are 4 different teams beaten by PSG. Now, those are more wins for PSG versus Premier League opponents than what relegated Premier League clubs have managed. And that's in Leicester City, the likes of Southampton, the likes of Ipswich Town, because they really squandered that. They really squandered that because they did manage as many wins on against against Premier League opponents during the course of the campaign, and it's a factor or it's an issue, or it tells you how good PSG have been against Premier League opponents. Anyways, we'll leave that fixture at that. But Arsenal will go into the second leg believing that it's doable. They know it's only half time, pretty much like Mikel Arteta said in the aftermath of that 3-0 victory against Real Madrid at the Emirates at the quarterfinals, that it was only half time, and even now it is only half time. So then what's the other talking point? Maybe before we sign out of that, some of yes, here's what Mikel Arteta had to say. He said it's halftime and we have a big chance to be in the final. You want to be in Champions League final, then you need to do something special. Then we are going to need to do something special in Paris. That's part of what he had to say in the aftermath of yesterday's loss to PSG. Then Martin Odegaard on PSG versus Arsenal return leg. We are going full gas. We fully believe we are going to turn it around. So there's a belief there that they can do it. That Arsenal can turn things around in the second leg. Then Ousmane Dembele on his injury. I felt a little something, but it's okay. It's going to be fine because he had to be withdrawn. And then they brought on Bradley Barcola there. So, like I said, Vitinha was awarded man of the match. Then maybe before next we get into the Barcelona Inter Milan, but shortly before, I do know if Dyer has agreed to join AS Monaco in the summer, and then the deal between Carlo Ancelotti and the Brazilian Federation looks to be in tatters after Real Madrid are showing hesitancy in paying the final in paying Carlo Ancelotti his final year of the contract. So it looks like PSG want to drag that close out process sort of to, I don't know, to frustrate Carlo Ancelotti, maybe, because he had already had a deal agreed in principle with the Brazilian Federation to become the new Brazil national team head coach. And according to Fabrizio Romano, Brazil are not considering waiting that long beyond, I think, the first week of June to see what happens. But it looks like Real Madrid want to frustrate Carlo Ancelotti with that move, but we'll wait to see. Then Manchester United are really pushing to sign Matheus Cunha from Wolverhampton Wanderers. Ruben Amorim really does appreciate the player, and he really wants to sign him to Old Trafford. And then their injury concerns at Real Madrid, David Alaba, and then he's injured. And then Antonio Rudiger, yes, had to undergo surgery on his knee, and those two, of course, their season is as good as done. But they said they will be working hard to at least have David Alaba available for the FIFA Club World Cup that will be hosted in the United States of America. That's starting in June later this year. Anyways, guys, let's get into that discussion of Barcelona versus Inter Milan. Of course, it's the second semi-final of the UEFA Champions League. That's coming our way tonight. So, Barcelona come into this particular fixture on the back of a title victory, having beaten Real Madrid 3-2 after extra time to win the Copa del Rey final or cup. Barcelona are looking to win their third treble in 16 years. The first came in 2008-2009 season. For those of you that do remember, they went on to win the Spanish La Liga, beat up against Manchester United in the finals of the UEFA Champions League. That season is when Arsenal also got knocked out of the UEFA Champions League at the semi-finals, losing both legs to Manchester United. Then their next treble was in 2015 under the charges of Luis Enrique. They won the Spanish La Liga, they won the Copa del Rey, and beat up against Juventus in the finals to complete the treble. Now they are looking for another one. They are looking for another one, and they have already won the Copa del Rey. They are looking forward to winning the Spanish La Liga because I think they will go on to win it because they're really close. And we'll wait to see how that develops. And then they are into the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, in which they do take on Inter Milan. Now we're talking about an Inter Milan side with some fairly old players, players that have played a lot of minutes. In their recent game against SC Roma, which they lost by 0-0, they were missing Marcus Thuram through injury. I thought he's a big miss for them when he's absent. He's scored about 17 goals across all competitions. He does have a good partnership with Lautaro Martinez. I think he was a perfect replacement for a partnership for Lautaro Martinez, because remember, he had a very good partnership with Romelu Lukaku when they were winning, when they were under the charges of Antonio Conte. So really, for me, that's quite telling. If he's not fit enough to be available for this particular game, I do think they'll miss him. Then they do have they have 22 players who have played more than 500 minutes. 12 of those 22 players are above the age of 29. 5 of them are above the age of 35, and 7 of them are above the age of 32. So that age gap, that age squad, you're talking about players like Henrik Mkhitaryan, who is in that team. You're talking about players like Matteo Darmian, who is in that team. So Inter Milan is a very good team, defensively solid. They're well grilled. Simone Inzaghi really knows how to grill his team. They do not concede so many goals. But if anything, Bayern Munich at the quarterfinals showed us that they're capable of conceding, because they shared the spoils in a 2-2 draw in the return leg at San Siro after Inter Milan had won the first leg by 2-1. So they conceded 3 goals in 2 games against Bayern Munich. Then Barcelona on the other side have a very young team, a very young squad. The Pau Kubasis, Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Gavi. I mean, that's really a decent team that I think is going to be relentless. They're going to attack them left, right, and center. I do think that Inter Milan may struggle to cope up with their pace and speed. I do not know who will start for Barcelona in that midfield, but I mean, over the weekend, while they were beating up against Real Madrid to win the Copa del Rey, they were doing that without their star striker in Robert Lewandowski, and yet they still did it anyway. So Pedri has been one of the best midfielders this season there is in the world. I think Pedri and Vitinha would go toe to toe in terms of who has been the best, but Pedri has really done a tremendous job. So as far as Barcelona are concerned, and let's not forget, they're one of the highest scoring teams in as far as this season is UEFA Champions League is concerned. So as far as Barcelona are concerned, this is my expectation for their starting lineup. Vokshek Szczesny in goal, Jules Koundé in that back line, Pau Kubasi, Inigo Martinez, and maybe Gerardo Martin. I do not think any of those is suspended for the return leg. Then in the midfield, I'm sort of conflicted between starting Gavi or Frankie de Jong. But I do know Pedri is a guaranteed starter. But I think I would go with Gavi alongside Pedri. And then you have Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, Rafinha, and Ferran Torres to lead the line. That's if Robert Lewandowski does not recover on time to be in this particular fixture. Then on the side of Inter Milan, you do expect the likes of Nico Balera in that midfield, Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Can Paratesi start? I do not know. But expect Carlos Augusto, Francesco Akabi, and Benjamin Pavard in that back three, and then of course Jan Sommer in goal. in the absence of Marcus Thuram, they've been playing Marko Arnautovic. For those of you that do remember him from his days at Stoke City and West Ham, then he had a stint in China, I think. So Marko Arnautovic could start with Lautaro Martinez to lead the lines there. But again, I think Barcelona favorites. They do have a manager in Hans Flick who guided Bayern Munich in 2020 to a treble when they beat up against PSG in the finals to win that competition after winning the DFB Pokal and the German Bundesliga. Then, so he's proven himself. I think that he's a very good manager. He's not succumbed to the pressure of the Spanish press and everything that comes with being a Barcelona manager and that kind of thing. It's not to say that it doesn't get to him, but he's given young players a chance. That's how we go to see the likes of Pau Kubasi and that kind of thing. Then there's I think it's Gerard, is it? No, Araujo. Yes, the Barcelona defender who was culpable for the goals, for one of the goals they conceded against Borussia Dortmund in the reverse fixture. So maybe he would, yes, Ronald Araujo, he will have to do better if he's the one to start in that backline ahead of Inigo Martinez. So again, it remains to be seen, but I do expect Barcelona will have a very strong, bench. The likes of Eric Garcia, Pau Victor, Fermin Lopez, Andreas Christensen, Pablo Torre, Ansu Fati. By the way, even Marc-Andre ter Stegen did return from that long injury, and he was on the bench over the weekend as they lost to Real Madrid. So, will he be the one chosen to start? I do not think. Maybe it could be because he's a very good goalkeeper. He's the captain of Barcelona, but I do think Szczesny still gets his flowers. He may start this one. So do let me know what your predictions are for that particular tie, and we'll see. We'll get the chance to discuss this game a little further after we get the starting lineups later this evening. I know that game does kick off at 10 p.m. East African time. We will come on another live broadcast and discuss what's to be expected depending on what lineups both managers will have pushed out, and we see. But keep it locked to the channel. Let's continue to engage. Let's continue to go. If you're new, kindly consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, we are 43 minutes into the broadcast. Apologies for anything that may have not gone right during the course of this broadcast, but allow me to wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy your work and see you guys later. Bye-bye.